Hare Krishna, Spandan, Namaskar.
Hare Krishna, Mainak, Namaste.
So today we are delighted to have with us Spandan Ghoshal, who has completed his masters in statistics from the Indian Statistical Institute, and currently he is a senior research fellow there, pursuing his PhD. And he is also one of the core members of Tattvaras, who is driving this channel. So thank you, Spandan, for joining this podcast by taking your time out.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Yeah.
It's our pleasure. So, Spandan, so you have taken your bachelor's as statistics and not engineering, which was really famous at that time. So
Mm.
why not engineering and why statistics?
So if I recall back, so basically the whole story starts with when I was studying in my class 8. So then basically it was my father who initially inspired me. He told me that there is such a subject that exists, and especially there is one relative in our family. He is my uncle, and he is currently a professor at IIT Kharagpur. So I always looked at him with such reverence and respect. Like he's a professor there, and I saw that he is respected by everyone, and he's so learned. He helped me when I was in my school days. He helped me quite a lot with my studies, helping me in mathematics and all. So one day, my father told me that he has done his studies in statistics from this prestigious institute called ISI. And you can also pursue the same path because you have inclination. Because I had that inclination in mathematics, I think from 7, 8, I had that inclination. So basically, it was an inspiration from my father. And then I took this subject because in West Bengal board, stats is offered as a separate subject in 10 plus 2. If you have that privilege. And I took that. And when I started studying, so there was one book, I'm forgetting the name of the authors, but it was written by some professors of Narendrapur Ramakrishna Mission. Very famous book. So while I started reading the book,
Gungupta Das,
essentially, yes, Gungupta Dasgupta and I think Giri Banerjee.
Giri
Yes,
Banerjee.
Giri Banerjee. Yes. So basically, when I started reading the book, there was one chapter of time series. I exactly remember the situation. So in time series, they talked about future prediction. So when you have a time series data, say of the population of India or the GDP of a country or the stock price, you can predict in future, say 10, 20 years after, what will that population or the GDP or the stock prices be. So at that moment, it was very fascinating to me that we are sort of kind of inventing a time machine and going in future and telling something. And those predictions come out to be quite accurate if we have good data. So that fascinated many such things in statistics fascinated me. The mathematical portions also were very interesting. So then I gradually decided because I was simultaneously preparing for IIT JEE, but the issue was even though my physics and maths was strong, my chemistry was not that strong. So naturally, it was quite difficult. Though I got a good rank in JEE mains, it was difficult for me to crack IITs. So it was like that. If I could crack IIT, then I will go into IITs and pursue BTech. But that was not fulfilled. So I gave this exam of presidency. I think it is called PubDate. So I gave that entrance, and somehow I got rank 6 over there. And then I had no other options left because I didn't apply for any other colleges. So I had to go into presidency. Initially, I was little thoughtful whether I have made the correct decision. But the moment, like that also I can clearly recall that the first time I went to presidency. So when I entered the campus, it is very nostalgic because there is a lot of history that is there associated with presidency. And this stat department, I think it is the oldest statistics department in Asia. So ISI also is a basically like a child that came out of this presidency college, right? We all know this. So this department has its own nostalgia and history, and I really like the ambience. And then I was very convinced, and I would say basically this is the journey. This is a journey that I started with statistics. Yeah.
So, since you said that you have
Mm.
taken inspiration from your uncle, so
Yes.
he was a professor at that time. So, at that young age only, have you decided that you will also become a professor, or it was not that a thought like you will pursue PhD? So,
I think that was not very clear in the initial days. So what happened is that when I started my bachelor's, so then we really had discussions among like friends. When we studied a topic, we had discussions. We tried to teach each other a particular topic. And in that, I found that I was very good at explaining things to people. So then gradually, I think in the final year of our bachelor's, I formally started teaching a few students of like school level. Then gradually this thing continued in my master's also. I've continued teaching, and I have found uh, that kind of a joy and satisfaction in teaching, especially. So that was not very clear in the initial days, but gradually it became clear that I will pursue this particular path. Yeah.
okay. So, as I recall in our batch, so those who have applied for PhD, so
Yeah.
maximum of them has gone abroad, and you stayed at India. So actually, it is
Yes.
very nice because I got your association due to that.
I also got your association and also some of our batchmates. So yeah, that's fortunate. Mm.
So for with every decision, so there are certain advantages and disadvantages that one
Yes.
face.
Mm.
So
Mm.
can you cite some of them, both the advantages and disadvantages?
See, yes, definitely there are both angles to them. So starting with the advantages, like it's being close to your home. I stay in Howrah and ISI is in Kolkata. So I go to the campus every day from my home. I can be close to my family and also close to like friends, dear friends like you. And so that thing is of course there. And also the whole culture that I have been brought up with, that is there with me. So that is there is not a cultural shift like those who go to USA. There is a kind of a cultural shock because many people have shared with me their personal experiences. So the cultures are different, right, over different countries. So it's sometimes difficult for them to adapt the culture. Also, the societal norms over there. There are many aspects because while someone is doing a PhD, a lot of emphasis is given on mental clarity, mental health, physical health. So these things are actually very much influential and crucial. So for me, I thought this whole environment of Kolkata, the environment of family, their care would be beneficial for me if I have that while doing my PhD. And I think that was one of the reasons that I stayed here. And that is also, I consider that as an advantage. Another advantage I would say is my supervisor, whom I got as my guide while doing PhD. So he's the same person with whom I started kind of writing my first paper when I was in my MStat days. So I really found that he's a very helpful person in guiding me, in explaining the concepts to me. So that is also another advantage that I will say. This interaction, this heartfelt interaction that I can have over here. I think that is less professional and more, I mean, you can understand that. So that thing is there. Of course, there are some disadvantages like of opportunities. Like in USA, there are a lot of conferences that keep on happening. There is a ample chance of getting a fund. You would get higher opportunities to collaborate with senior researchers. Those things are there. That I definitely agree. Yeah. Yes.
So if any junior comes to you, then and ask you, what should I like? Should I go to US or should I stay in India? So what should be your reply?
Uh, that completely depends on his priorities. So if his priority is like he wants just to do the research, it is immaterial where he stays, what kind of an environment he lives with, what kind of people he lives with, right? And there are some people who are of very strong nature, who can adapt to those situations. Then that's all right. Of course, one has to keep in mind that if they're going to USA, it doesn't mean that will always be beneficial even from the academic point of view, because ultimately it all depends on the supervisor. And there are many instances where there has been a lot of communication gaps, understanding gaps, right? There is a thing called vibe matching. So basically, one should have similar kind of nature with the supervisor. If the frequencies don't match, they will feel the friction, and that creates a problem in his research career, in his PhD life. So those things are there. Keeping those things in mind, basically what would happen, I mean, over the last few years, what I have seen, people start collaborating with someone from USA, maybe, or say someone comes over here in India. I mean, I say this culture is there, that if someone comes and gives a talk, people get to interact with them, also know a lot about the department of their university over there in USA. If they like the work culture, or say they are doing some work, then eventually they apply there. And if they're lucky enough, they end up in the very exact place they wanted to go. So in such cases, it's very nice. It's very nice. And also, it's very nice if you are a person with a very high level of academic qualification, like you have extreme good marks, top level marks, and you have good, even some published papers maybe, so which keeps you on the top tier of the applicants, among the applicants, and you end up in, say, the top 20 universities, global universities, then that is definitely, you should go there, because anyhow that will be a very important factor in your research career. But beyond that, I think ISI is also an institute, especially in India, it is undoubtedly the best institute for statistical research. So you have to decide. It's very specific to the person and the situation.
So Spandan, have you heard anything, any myths regarding the PhDs about Indian universities?
Yes,
Like you
there are
constantly
myths.
hear them.
Yes, so basically people say that the research culture in India is not that good. People don't write that much influential papers. The guides are exploitative in nature. So there are many such ideas over there. Of course, these are not completely vague. There are cases, but there are cases like this in every continent. I mean, also in USA or European countries, if one goes deep into kind of some sort of investigation, they might see such cases are there. Very common. But I would say the thing is changing rapidly in India because the data availability, like there are many new portals where very high quality data is available. If one is interested to do research, they can on specific Indian data sets. And also about supervisors, I in my research life I have seen there are so many good supervisors over there in India, in ISI specifically. There's so many nice people who understand the situations of their students, and they act accordingly. So those persons are definitely there. And also regarding research quality, I would say one thing here, that the research quality in India and in USA, or the research culture, there is one difference. So actually what happens in USA, when you join as a PhD student, most of the time what happens, your supervisor has a well-defined problem. That often happens. So that basically makes your path easier. they pave the path for you, and it becomes quite easier for you to walk through that. So basically, flowers are embedded in your path of PhD. But sometimes in India, that is not the case always. So maybe you have to think for a research problem. You have to do most of the like writing theorems, doing simulations, gathering data, most of the work. But that is not the case for USA. Often, I'm not saying each and every time, but that of course makes it difficult to do a quality research in India. People often get lost in this cycle of searching a good problem, writing a paper, submitting it in journals. Then sometimes reviews come for resubmission or edits, right? But that is less the case in USA. The rejection rates are lower, as far as I have heard. Of course, there is a reason because you get us more professional treatment over there. But also, what happens if you can survive the research culture in India, that also makes you stronger. Stronger in the sense that makes you more mature as a researcher. You can deal with harsh situations like when someone ends up in a postdoc and they essentially they don't have such that kind of a supervisor who will feed everything. So you have to do most of the work, right? So there people often find the advantage if they can survive this culture in India. Yeah.
Okay, so what was your case here currently? Like the problems, are they defined or you are
Yes.
structured them?
So the first paper that I am writing, it was mostly formulated by me. But again, like the subsequent works, my supervisor had some ideas or some half done, half baked works were there maybe, and they got stuck somewhere. So then he kind of like he explained the thing to me, and I tried to push it further. So it's a mixture, right? It's a mixture. It is not that you have to write all four papers on your own in India. That is not the case, but maybe you have to put a little more effort than maybe when you were in USA. Yeah.
So, so Spandan, so I know you from your master's days, and it's around 5 years. So,
Yes.
so what I have observed is that you were very dedicated to your work, and you
Not
give,
not truly. I'm trying to be.
so
Yeah.
that's your humility. But so what I have seen that, and another thing that I have observed that the time that you spend with statistics, you love spending time actually with the subject. So
Yes.
I think you are one of the eligible candidates to give the answer for the next question.
Okay.
So, so can you tell what is the difference? Like, I want to know actually, what is the difference in between learning statistics and doing a research in statistics?
Okay. So learning and research in statistics. See, what I would say, research is like, so there is a very nice illustration I saw somewhere. You can think of a bubble, okay? A bubble that represents the whole of statistical literature. Now, doing research is basically means you are pinpointing at a particular point on the circumference of this very large bubble, and you are just pushing it little further, right? That is you one's contribution, like my contribution, what I am doing. But the whole landscape of knowledge is so vast, and learning is like diving into it. So one can learn so many things. The statistical literature, at least now, even though it's a very new subject, like as a different discipline, it was started, like people started studying it, I think, from the 1920s mostly, from the work of Fisher, Neiman, Pearson, and legends like that. So, so there is a lot of development that has taken place. And learning means why would someone learn? They will either learn out of enthusiasm or out of requirement. They want to do some data analysis. So, so yeah, so that essentially answer. So research is like you have to be super focused in one particular area, one particular problem, and contribute in, say, proposing a new method or showing a nice way to analyze some special type of data set. So that is your contribution. And learning means there is so many things. So learning it mostly depends on your curiosity and requirement. Yeah.
Okay. And so currently, what are you exploring in your PhD? And why does it matter for like you are exploring so?
Okay. So currently my research problem is basically a problem in statistics called as change point detection. So like as you all know, like spiritually also talking, change is evident in all of our life, right? So constantly things are changing, people are changing, our bodies, physical body is changing, right? The situations, different situations, different entities are changing. So the study of changes is essentially change point detection from a statistical perspective. And what it essentially doing is like you have, say, a stream of data sets. You are obtaining, say, a time series data or like mostly time ordered data or any sort of ordered data where you have observations. You are obtaining observation, then suddenly the distribution of the observation changes. Either it's kind of a location shift or scale shift or maybe a general type of change in the distribution. So basically my study is detecting those changes, also the reason behind them, why such changes occur. Are there some significant factors that are influencing and making those changes? And especially in the domain of high dimensional data. So this is the idea that I'm currently working on. Yes.
Okay. So for the audience, can you just explain what is high dimension?
Yeah. So high dimensional essentially means in statistics, most of the methods that have been developed, they are even in like, so you have say observations, which has multiple dimensions. Like for a particular person, I can measure their height, weight, I can note their age, some other attributes. So for one individual, we have so many attributes. Now these are dimensions, right? So the whole study of multivariate data, I think the audience will be familiar with the idea of multivariate statistics, some idea of it. So when you have one observation and for them we have different dimensions, right? Now high dimension is essentially means the number of dimension is high or it is large, mainly it is large from say the number of observations that we have. So those kind of situations arise now in modern world, modern data sets like genetic data. For one individual, we might have gene expressions for 3 lakh or I would say like 3 million genes. So how to analyze those data? Classical methods don't work for this kind of data sets. So I would say quite recently, like in the early 2000, some methods came up. And this then became a very popular field of study in statistical literature. So that is essentially the whole of high dimensional statistics in very brief. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So Spandan, apart from your PhD life, so how you like to spend your time? So what do you do in general?
So yeah, like apart from academics, I have two things I would say, two, three things in my life. Like, of course, we all are like the audience can understand. We have some sort of spiritual inclination. We have our spiritual practices, and also we have like I have some interest in music, some taste in music. Being born and brought up in a kind of a musical family, I have that. So yeah, studies, music, spirituality. Mostly these are the things that
So
yeah encompass
yeah.
my life.
So
Yes.
for you, what is spirituality actually? And why you feel like
Basically,
it is
yeah,
important for you practicing that?
yeah. So there is this famous verse in Bhagavad Gita. I will just quote one of the very powerful slokas in Bhagavad Gita is Dehinosmin yatha dehe yopanam komaram jara tatha dehantara prapti dhirastatra na munyati. So basically the essence is that we are not this body. We have often heard this statement. But this is such a strong statement if we think deeply about it. Like the whole concept of death, soul, these things we all have heard in some point of time in our life. So that fascinated me. And spirituality to me is the systematic study through which we can actually have experience of these statements that we are not this body, we are something beyond this. And so we should invest time in that thing that is beyond our body, our physical realm. Yeah.
Okay. So, so it's so next we can do a quick fire, right? So,
Okay.
so
Okay, I'm
Spandan, so
excited.
yeah, so as a
Hmm.
statistician from the bachelor's days, we always hear about the fight in between the frequentist and the Bayesian.
Yes,
So, whom do you support?
I am completely frequentist in my work currently, but I mean my work is limited to frequentist, but it doesn't mean ki the Bayesian ideology is something that I not support. That is there, but I couldn't get the chance to explore Bayesian paradigm much. So now, as of now, I'm a frequentist. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Hmm.
And Spandan, so you read so many papers. So, do you recall any such paper that actually changed your mind on how to visualize statistics as a subject?
Yes, so there are a few papers that I will say. Of course, one paper that I came across was on this whole idea of bootstrap resampling tests. So it was something very fascinating. I came across it in my bachelor's days, and it really fascinated me that we can perform statistical tests in very, I would say, very harsh situations when you don't have any idea about the underlying distributions. There is the distributions are dependent on the data. So this whole data-driven approach, it's very powerful, it's very modern and very revolutionary. Yeah. And also another paper I should mention. This paper is by James and Matterson. It is on change point detection, but it is actually the most important paper that actually motivated me in writing my first paper, my own first paper. So that was also very influential. When I really deeply studied it, I understood the main ideas of the domain that I am currently working. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So, any last advice for those who are, for all the juniors that are aspiring to be such a good statistician like you?
No, I am nothing close to a good statistician. I am still a novice, just started exploring it. So I would say the most important thing is this curiosity that you should have for research. Of course, it depends on whether you want to teach or you want to do research. For me personally, I'm more inclined to teaching. So this whole career or path of PhD has given me and is giving me a lot of chance to teach and interact with students, and it is really a fun thing. It's a very nice thing to do, to kind of like interact with students in class, to teach them. But research is something very serious. So if someone wants to be a researcher and someone wants to be a lecturer, that should be clear in someone's mind. Of course, we have to be a researcher in the first phase of our life. Then only we can be a lecturer because we should have a PhD and a postdoc if someone wants to go into the premier institutes as a faculty. So yes, this inquisitiveness should be there, and don't think much about USA, Europe, India, these things. Just learn, just focus on learning the subject. Nowadays, many things are changing. The current geopolitical situations, the situation of the world is quite different, especially the whole surge of AI, right? It is really changing the whole domain of research. So if you like, just I would like to mention a little bit about AI
Yeah,
and
sure.
how it is helping not only me but many researchers. So AI is really helping in doing this literature survey, in finding out places where you can do a research, basically where there's a literature gap, some unsolved problem is there, or it can very nicely analyze the whole statistical research, the active areas of research, and it can tell you that which areas you can select for research. That is such a powerful thing. It was not like this any before. I mean, you required a very expert personality to tell you these things, but now you can essentially ask this, or you can get some idea of this from tools like ChatGPT and other Gemini and other tools. So this is very powerful thing, and what it can do is nicely organize and greatly improve the quality of research. So the 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 point or the factor of your position or your location where you are doing your research, I think would be less important day after day. What will be more important is what you are doing your research on and what is your interest in doing that research. So build your interest, learn the topics very nicely, go into the depths, not superficially. And when you are going into the depths, I mean, you can also read a paper. Suppose you are taught in your masters, if someone is learning about lasso regression or any courses, if they are learning about lasso or anything like that. I just mentioned that as an example. Then they should read the paper. They should go through the paper, what the actual paper is saying. They will learn many other things and they can delve deeper into that. That is the research mindset, right? What is the unsolved problems? What are the limitations? So yes, I think I became too elaborate in answering, but yes, that is my answer.
Okay, so you mentioned that you like teaching. So anything that you have
Yes,
learned from your students?
yes, many things when I teach, when I prepare for a class. Like currently, to be honest, I'm teaching as the teaching assistant, assisting my supervisor or the faculty. But again, I have to take some classes, right? Or make some questions, make some assignments, or give the solutions. So for that, I have to prepare the same topic that I learned previously. But now what is happening, I am seeing the same topic, but with a different perspective, right? Or I am learning something new. And that happens every day. Like yesterday only, I went to the class to give some answer scripts, and I just sat in the class, and my supervisor was teaching. And the result that he proved, it was something that was not known to me, or I just forgot the result. And I was shocked that, oh, this actually holds. Like it was regarding Kolmogorov-Smirnov test. So it proved how it is a distribution free test. And I somehow just forgot it. And I was thinking, oh, how can this be proved? Then when I saw the proof, I recalled, oh, that is also something that I did in my master's. So in that way, always I keep on learning. And while teaching, some students might ask some question for which I don't have the answer at that moment. It feels a little embarrassing and also humbling, but I next day I try to come up with the answer. And often they ask such meaningful and interesting questions. Yeah.
So, hope your students see this podcast.
Okay. I am also hopeful.
So, thank you, Spandan, for joining. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.